Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mark from Solar Games, and today we're going to talk about Warhammer decks. So, I know Warhammer decks are already out. We've already seen them. They're very fun. But one of the things I'm actually really excited about is, because Warhammer decks did so well, right, on the market, and Wizards definitely didn't disappoint. I have this inkling that there may be more Warhammer decks coming potentially next year. And the reason I say this is because look at what happened with Jumpstart or Modern Horizons, things like this. Any new product that Wizards tries and is successful, they will try to continue pushing it forward more, right? Secret Lair are all good examples of this. I'm really hoping that next year they do introduce 4 more Warhammer decks. And if they do them, here's my predictions for what those 4 are and why I'm so excited about this. So the thing about Warhammer is that there are many factions out there. And if you just think about just the human or the Imperium, there's quite a bit already there, right? But let's not get into all these little side factions or small sub factions. If we just talk about the large factions, there are actually exactly 4 factions that's kind of missing from the decks currently. So the first one is going to be the Eldar. So Eldar is like space elf in Warhammer. So they're a high elf race. They're very magical. They have a lot of psychic power, which is in Warhammer, it's like magic. And in general, they are very interested in making sure that they have a lot of capabilities and abilities to manipulate and control the universe, the warp, etc. They're kind of just trying to figure out. They've had some rough time recently with chaos, and so at this point they're trying to figure out how to kind of keep going and restore some of the glory that they've had in the past. So they're definitely a fallen race right now. Most of the Eldar are in what they call craft worlds. These are gigantic spaceships that are basically now their home world, because their home world kind of got wrecked by chaos. So they're pretty screwed. And so basically at this point, the Eldars do have essentially, immortality, because they can live very long. Unfortunately for Eldars though, because they kind of screwed up a lot of things, every time they die, they risk their soul being sucked up by one of the chaos gods, Slaanesh, forever. So they wear these jewels on their armor, and they're like soul shards. So think soul stones from Diablo, but basically it absorbs their soul when they die and goes into one of these shards that can protect them from being absorbed by Slaanesh. They can essentially then put the shards into something else and then resurrect the Eldar, if you will. So it's kind of like how they work. Then there's going to be the Dark Eldar. So think like Dark Elves. So what happened was with the Eldar back when the split, when they awoken the god of the god Slaanesh, is that essentially they split. So the Eldar or Light Eldar, they started traveling across the galaxy on their craft worlds, and Dark Eldar receded into basically this section of the warp that the Eldars can access called the Webway, and they have their own world there. So the Eldars are hiding there, and that does hide themselves from the universe, but also from chaos. And they're over there. The Dark Eldar are over there just going crazy, kidnapping people, torturing people, etc. So they are basically they are also fighting chaos, but they're kind of following again the way that they wanted to live, which is kind of live high pleasure, high amount of statistic things they want to do. So it's kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's basically Dark Eldar. Yeah, and so they're kidnapping everybody. They don't really care. They don't really care who they torture, but they just want to torture people. Slow death is always going to be great for the Dark Eldar, for their victims. Okay, they have the same problem, by the way, too. When they die, they also could potentially be captured by Slaanesh, so they also have stones that they wear, slightly different than the Light Eldar, but it serves the same purpose. Then there is the race of orcs. They're pretty popular in 40k. Basically, the orcs are this group, and actually there was a secret layer recently on about the orcs as well. But they're basically this group of green creatures that were created. In general, they're just created for war. They're very aggressive. They're also very funny in 40k. So what they would do is they would get together and they would think about something. So for example, let's say they piece a bunch of metal together, right? And they say, oh, this is a car. And if enough orcs think this is a car, then that thing becomes a car. I mean, basically their sheer will of imagination makes the reality around them. So as an example, if a bunch of orcs are driving a car that they thought up, and they are ran out of gas, and they think, oh no, we have a full tank. As long as enough orcs think that way, now suddenly they have a full tank. It's pretty crazy. They're pretty funny. They're all about fighting, and if they ever get into trouble or whatever, or if they get into this bloodlust mode, they can call what's called a wog. And essentially, when orcs call a wog, they are going to go into blood frenzy craze. And they're going to kill every single thing that they see until everybody is dead. And they win. Or they all die. So it's pretty crazy. They're really funny. And they're just very aggressive. And pretty uncontrollable. So that's the orc. And they don't really even have any sort of hierarchy or structure, but essentially in the orc culture, the boss is the one that beats up everybody else and only can continue being the boss as long as nobody else then beats that guy up. So their structure is just 100% hierarchical based on who's the strongest orc. And then of course there's a different race, the last race, which is a younger race called the Tau. And Tau isn't even like a race as much as it is a ideology. So Tau follow the ideology of the greater good. So if you think there is a good guy in Warhammer, Tau's pretty close to it. So they will sacrifice individuality to help make the universe a better place. That's kind of like their philosophy. And they're going out there recruiting everyone. They don't really care about, they're not racist, like the other races in the galaxy. Basically, every other race just don't like each other. But Tau is very open to other races, so they will openly recruit anybody who wants to join them, as long as they believe the overarching philosophy of the greater good. Tau, in general, fights in their technology is very, very good as well. So for some reason, they can develop really, really high tech stuff. So they fight in robots and gigantic robots. They have lots of long range weapons. They're not very good in close combat, but they can kind of do a little bit of that. So the joke, of course, in 40k is Tau is like flying a bunch of Gundams is basically Tau. So they're good for range combat. They're not very good up and close and melee, and they have big robots, and they believe in this weird greater good philosophy. So if Warhammer ever does do 4 more decks, I believe these are going to be the 4 decks that they do, and I would be so happy if they did that because this is so interesting to me. But of course, we'll see about what they actually do. And there's a ton of some sub-factions of Warhammer they could always explore. So I'm actually kind of excited that they even did the 4 decks, and I'm hoping it does sell very well, which will essentially give green light to probably do another set of them for the future. So anyways, thank you for watching this. This is Mark from Solar Games. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.